Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's June 14th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And real quickly, I know we've been having some issues on the website for a week or so with some 500 page load errors, and I think we finally have it resolved. I've narrowed it down and finally figured out what was causing the error. Fingers crossed. The real test will be tomorrow at between 9:30 and 10 when I send out the midday report. What was happening at that point in time was we were sending out a large number of emails, plus everybody getting those emails and logging into the site at the same time. And we found at least two bugs and fixed them. First bug I fixed, I thought had the problem resolved. It improved things a little, but it didn't really fix the problem. Today, I was probably 9:45, we had the same issue. So, but today I found another bug, a much bigger bug. We corrected that, and I could actually generate that 500 error on the back end of the site doing some certain things that I do, and I could not generate that error today for any reason since mid to late afternoon. So fingers crossed. We'll see. The site's definitely moving quicker, much faster, and I think this was the bug that was causing the main issue. So, like I said, fingers crossed. The true test will be around 9:30 or 10 tomorrow. So we'll see what happens then. But hopefully we got it fixed. And even if we do have a problem tomorrow, I think we can tweak this issue a little bit more and hopefully fix it for good. So I think we're on the right track, in other words. So I don't want to tell you for certain because I thought for certain we had it fixed yesterday, and we still have a bug this morning. Wasn't as bad as it was the previous day, but it still was there, and it's frustrating, and the site wasn't moving as fast as it should. Of course, anytime you get a huge influx of people at one time, it may drag the site down momentarily, but it usually only lasts a few minutes. But so far, I'm hoping maybe we fix that problem too with this issue. So, but let's get to the chart lesson. You can see here's our day. We're way oversold, severely oversold. I'm looking at our bands here. You can see how they were really accurate until, you can see when you got down to the oversold here, it went up. When you got to the overbought, it went back down. And you can see this chart was really, these bands were great until right in here. This is when the craziness started, and everything still looks pretty good until right in here. We've just been severely oversold. You can see that brown. It's a little hard to see it with the, well, you can see, let me just get this one out of the way too, but you can see the brown, and you can see how we're severely oversold, and now we're right back there again, and again we're severely oversold here. So it might mean that we need to correct the bands. The current volatility might be giving us an off reading. I've been a little hesitant to change them because they've been so accurate, even during COVID and all, when things were crazy. But this sell-off has just been monstrous, and it's very rare that you stay this oversold for this long. But this is a little different than this is a little different sell-off than we've had in a long time. We went from 4,200 to 3,700 in a matter of a few days, and that's not good. So, and it doesn't look like it's over yet. You can see we're starting to get some buying coming in, but I still, unless we come up short here and reverse, which we could because we're severely oversold, and we do have a new low in place here. But my guess is we'll at least touch this lower band before we're going to rally here. We could pull back and push down again, or we could just reverse from here. It's not impossible, but generally you're going to bounce off this lower side before you go higher. So we've got room, and we could sit here and just bounce down that thing for a while before it before it goes higher. I mean, you see what it did here. We did get a little bit of a bounce, and it came back down. And I mean, I've seen it where you bounce down that for a while on a really bad sell-off, or the same thing on the upside. You bounce off of the trend line on the upside for quite a while. So I just don't know if we're done here yet or not. But anyway, you can see it's looking like we might rally tomorrow, but this is overnight stuff, and this could change in a blink. But this was definitely kind of a neutral type day, kind of a trading range kind of day. It doesn't really look that way on the chart. I mean, it's still pretty negative, but you can see we closed way off the lows. So that's important. But we'll see what tomorrow brings. But let's flip over to the other chart, go through the trades, and wrap this day up. And you can clearly see the blue down trend that we had today. We had a break here. It's a little spike and channel down, and we had a break here, 2 legs down to a new low, and we've reversed out of there. And it looks as if we're maybe we're going to attempt a measured leg up here. We'll see. That just gets us back up here to where we kind of had this resistance this morning. So, but that could just be a start, and we are starting a new day, so that could change everything. But just assuming we get a measured leg up, that's a possibility. So, but you can clearly see the 2-tiered down channel. We started to find some support in here, which is pretty much what I talked about this morning. I figured we'd get some support here on yesterday's overnight, or yesterday's lows. And you can see that, and it took a little while to work through that, but once we did, we went on lower, and then of course we rallied back, and we actually get back inside that range. You can see that we bounced off of it. We're going higher now, and that's pretty standard. So, I mean, prices almost always come back and test this. We did come back and test it here after breaking through, but usually you'll test it a few times, and when we came back to test it this time, it didn't hold. And we came back and we tested the lows, and it held. So we're going higher, and that's the way price action really works. Prices will continually test support and resistance, and when they don't, if they hold on enough tests, they reverse, and if they don't hold, they continue on until they do find a place where the tests hold, and then it reverses. And you see that over and over, and that's basically what a channel is. You test the lows, it holds. You test the highs, it holds. You test the lows, it holds. And here we couldn't even get back to the highs. That's not a good sign. And we continue to push lower, and then we finally pushed higher, got the break of the channel. That's basically 2 measured legs. Looking at it, let's just measure it and see how close it is. I mean, it's pretty much 2 perfect measured legs down, and we reversed. And that's typical price action for you. So let's zoom in, go through the trade. There's quite a few of them, so they're all shorts. I don't think I even marked it. Maybe one blue down here when we finally had the new low and we got a reversal pattern. That's about it, though. You just need to stay with a downtrend in something like this. It's just not worth risking it. But 7 o'clock came right in here. There is a reversal here. But you can't go long right there. You're still inside that trend line, and it does work higher, but it doesn't take it long. We're going down again. And this is really tempting, but way away from the EMA, and it is an overshoot. But it looks like we had an overshoot here too already. And you'll get some of those in the overnight that don't tend to follow through, but in this case, we went lower. So I mean, you could, I'm not going to say if you want to be aggressive, this is the kind you want to do it on, because if you get it right, you may get a big runner. And you would have probably had a runner here, although it does come back. That's how efficient this market is. It comes back, and it probably gets, I can't tell if it would have got your break even there or not. Now, it missed it by a tick or two, but it would have cleaned out and scared most everybody out. So, and that's the intent. And I mean, it's amazing how efficient this market is. They don't miss a beat. And off we're going lower again. And there's a hidden second entry in there, so that's another one maybe. But the odds are, in this scenario here, you're expecting prices to come back up here. Of course, maybe we don't know where here is yet. Maybe here, not what I wanted. Maybe here is actually, let me just move the whole thing down here. And maybe it sets up like that. I mean, that's still a distinct possibility. But you can see the channel continues to hold. So these could be overshoots. And that would explain why we turned back down here, not on the EMA. And I mean, that fits really well. So if you saw it that way, I don't see anything wrong with that. But I played it off this high here in these lows. And I don't think you can argue with either one of them, because we finally get the break here. Huge move, 2 legs down to a new low, and then we reverse. So doesn't really matter. I think you get to the same place. So maybe you take that trade there. If you saw it the other way, you'd be more apt to take that trade right there, I think. And there is a hidden second entry. And you could actually, I mean, there's a failure here, but that's too congested. Let me zoom in here a little more. I'm sorry. Sometimes I forget how far out I am. Just so much price action here. But you can clearly see that's a little congested, and I just don't think you want to trade that as a failure. But maybe you take that one. I didn't mean to make that red. I have to make that green. And of course, we run on down, and you got another failure here, but again, it's sideways. But notice you made the high. You come back and test it once. You come back and test it twice. And look at that big bearish bar. I like going short on that one. And then we run down. We bounce off the lows. We come up. You may not have had this channel here. There's ways to find it, but it's a little complicated. So you probably won't have that. At least you won't have it confirmed and know for sure. But we head back up. We get a break and a couple legs up to a new high. And then we get a lower high right here. And that does confirm that trend line, short-term one. It took it a minute to break lower. It didn't. With this inside bar, it makes it a little more questionable. But I think you could also argue that as a triple test, and with it confirming the trend line, if it breaks lower there, we're probably going lower. And you see it took it a minute. It breaks lower, turns back up, and then turns back down. So this one's real close to being able to say, hey, that should probably be green. So if you saw this and were questioning it, nothing wrong with that. So, I mean, it's real close to being green. Of course, we run on down, and then we're just chopping sideways here. And that's where the low support was that I was talking about for the day, for the overnight. So you had to be real careful. You couldn't get short down here, really, without a good setup. Notice we do come back up. You get a break in the lower high, and you got enough room here back down to here. And we're probably going to make a new low on this yellow one, so there's a chance we're going lower with the blue channel. And we don't, we did come off what looks like the bottom already, but that doesn't mean we can't come back down there again. Like I said, we're right off the midline, so we could easily come back down here. So I was still looking for a new low here on this. And I think you can, that's a second entry short. Notice you get a, well, technically it's not by the count, but notice how that all looks like one move, and then you get a move, and then so it looks like a second entry short. By the count, it's a third entry, but you could look at that as a second entry. Turns out to be a nice move, and then we bounce. I don't see anything you can buy there. There's no way to buy this on the way up, and then of course we do. That kind of sets that trend line. So yeah, that's another thing. You probably wouldn't have had this blue channel when this bounced here, so that wouldn't have really told you much. You're just looking for the new low on the yellow one. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself there. Just zooming in too far and not seeing the big picture. But this does confirm that trend line. Very good signal bar, and technically this is a new low. So you get a first entry, second entry, and then you move up and make it a little double top here. And even though we go a little higher there, let me just go ahead and draw it. There's really a little channel working up right through here. And you get your break, and there's a couple legs up to a new high. So it's another reason to like that trade. Then you make this low, first entry, second entry. That sets the trend line. We confirm it down here. But you don't get a setup there. You get another second entry here, but the signal bar is right here, and that looks congested, so there's not really a setup there. And plus, you just broke below the support again. It does test it again, so if you'd had a really good signal bar without all that congestion, maybe you go short right there. But in this circumstances, I don't really like it. We drop down. You actually get a break of the yellow channel. We talked about this one already. It's second entry short. And again, by the count, your second entry is right here. But that looks like one leg up, one leg down, and another leg up. And that turns out to be a really nice move. You get your new low. Looks like we might bounce out of there, but no, we head lower. And then by now you got your channel set. So bounces, but you don't want to buy this. Just let this, I mean, if you got a nice reversal pattern here, maybe, but just let this play out. And even though, and that's the thing in these big sell-offs, you get these huge rallies, and they just suddenly peter out, and boom, it's headed down again. And right here you have a first entry, second entry, but that doesn't really set up like a reversal. Maybe you say, hey, it's worth risking back to here. Maybe you could say, hey, this looks like a range, and it does. So I mean, if you took that one, there's probably going to be some greens in there I don't mark. And people will ask me about them, so if they look, if they look like there's a reason you might want to take it, I'll probably mark it. And we're just dropping on down in this yellow channel again, and you try to go higher once, twice, and 3 times. It turns down right off the EMA. It actually, I believe this broke higher first and then turned down. I'd probably wait for this to close here. And when it did, it was bearish. And then it comes back and tests it again just for good measure. And that's where I really like that entry. And that runs on down to the new low, and boom, look at it. People that understand price action know that's what they're taking chances buying down here. And sometimes they'll get it right, and a lot of times they'll get it wrong. But when you get it right, you get these big moves. But don't risk it, because that's where because even though you'll get it right sometimes, you'll get it wrong more times than you'll get it right. And it looks like we're going to rally, and you drop down here. That's too risky to take a second entry there, even though you probably get 2 measured legs up. I wouldn't expect to be hitting one there, and you can see that's a perfect measured leg up. That's just a first entry short right there, and you actually get a second entry long, but again, that's too congested. Runs back up, and we test that again, and you finally get a third test here. But notice you get a break and a new high of this green channel too, and look at the sell-off. People that understand this price action see that stuff, and unfortunately, I couldn't justify giving that I didn't even really want to give it a green, but you could argue for it. It's a triple test. The signal bar is just, maybe that closes in the lower third, but I'm going to be honest with you, with it making a new high there, I'm not going to risk it. I'm going to wait for a lower high, and you just don't get that chance. The bottom just falls out of it. But everything's in place for that to happen on a triple test. So you might take that trade. If you want to be aggressive, I'll be honest with you, I'd probably skip it myself, though. So it's just too risky. I mean, you're a long way away from the EMA, too, and there's a hidden second entry in there as well. There's a bunch of pluses in the plus column far, but there's some negatives there, too. And so it's a less than perfect trade. Anytime you take a less than perfect trade, there's a chance it'll fail on you. So wait for the sure things. I mean, there was one time I believed that, you had to take every trade that came up. Otherwise, if you tried to kind of pick and choose, that you'd probably get it wrong more times than not. I don't believe that any longer. I believe that you can get good enough at reading this chart that you can pick and choose, and you'll have better odds, because you're not forcing yourself to take iffy trades just because it looks like a good setup. So my belief is that wait on the sure things. And I think we've proven that over time that's the better strategy, because we got people that are doing really well, trading 90% plus. And so it's not just me saying that. There's people that are actually doing it and having really good success, and they're being patient, taking only a couple of trades a day, basically the same thing I do, 2 or 3 good, the best trades a day, and being patient and waiting on them and sticking to the sure things, and they're having great success. So it works. That strategy works, trust me. But we get a break here, move to a new low, and then we're going higher. But notice this one. This is a good reversal. You would expect, hey, maybe prices will test this high again on this short-term channel. But when they shoot right through the EMA, that's not a good sign, especially when it tries to go higher once and then tries to go higher again and turns down. I like going. You could actually enter this one on the engulfing bar. It's a little sideways, but technically that's not congestion. Prices are just bouncing off that EMA, but they're not going anywhere. So that's not rejection of prices off that midline. I think I said EMA maybe, but that's a midline. You can see we bounced there several times before it went lower, and we didn't really bounce till here because that was the target. And so they're wanting to test this again, and it comes down here, and when it breaks here, that looks like that's rejection. I'm pretty sure you'd have got a scalp there. I wouldn't take it. I want to see it tested a third time before I'm going to take that. And so, yeah, you get an easy scalp out of that. I wouldn't say easy. You only got two. You got one extra tick than you really need. So it's not, but it works. But I'd wait on the triple test, and you don't get it. Notice that how it traps people. So when you see this thing making lower highs each time it comes up, that's not a good sign that we're going higher yet. Prices are not ready to go higher, so don't be trying to pick bottoms on that. Here you at least get a higher low, but again, it's too congested, and you could hit that support resistance and turn down. It does push above it and goes right to the EMA, which would be what you would expect to happen, but there's too big a chance it could turn down off that support resistance line, that blue line. And that was the lower part of that was the lows from yesterday. Exactly where you would expect prices to bounce. So you got to be real careful. We bounce out of there, but notice how we're really struggling. There's no setup here. There's no reversal pattern. Even here when it comes back to the trend line, there's no real setup. There's nothing there I would want to take. And of course, you can't go long into the trend line. And you run up here, and notice this. You'll notice I marked this green. But this was the first break of the main channel. This was the first break of this pink channel in hours, since we hadn't been above that since 10 o'clock in the morning, and this is at noontime, so a couple of hours. So you would expect that to fail. So when you get this huge, when it breaks higher right there and turns down, you got to be careful here trying to pick these tops, because if you thought you really never got a trigger here, but when it runs way up here and it breaks higher and turns down that far away from the EMA on such a bearish day, with the first break out of the channel, first break out of the big downtrend, there's a good chance we're going higher here. So you may take that trade. And of course, notice it bounces at the EMA, pushes through, pulls back, and tests it. My problem with this is you got those 3 bars stacked up. That one has no body. This one, it's got a body, but it has a big stems on each side. It's an engulfing bar. I just would skip it because it could bounce there and go higher. The odds are it's going lower. That's what you would expect, but it might bounce before it does, but it doesn't. It just drops on down. So I marked that one green, but I'd probably skip it. It's too risky for me. I don't like it. If you want to trade at 90%, you got to skip those kind of trades. We run down here, we get a break, new low, no setup though, and we're moving the other way. And that's just another choppy, doesn't look like anybody's really convinced prices are going higher. Notice you get a break, 2 legs up, and it's just still chopping sideways here. We're just stuck in this channel. You do get a breakout there, not really a setup I like. Then you get another one here that actually breaks higher and turns back down. That ends very bearish. I wouldn't enter that on the engulfing bar, but when that closes that negative, you're given a chance, a big bearish bar right at the highs of the range to go short, and you're probably going back to the lows. And it takes 2 legs to get down there, but that's what happens, and we go right back down there, and we actually go lower, and then we bounce again. Don't be trying to buy this thing. Just don't do it. come back here and you get a second entry short right off that key entry point again. And we don't have a new low in place yet. So odds are we're still going to work lower. This is one you might take. Generally, I mean, you could argue that tested that twice. I'd like to see it tested again, especially since it's congested. But prices are probably going to try to make a new low. And so you may take that trade. That's another one you could argue to be green. And there's a lower high here, but you can't take that one. You're just chopping lower here. And you're just stuck in this range. And I don't think you want to buy yet. There's no reason to buy here. I don't see any shorts I like, except maybe here when we break out of there and pull back. You're probably going to make that next leg down, and you would look for that. Let's just say you looked for that measured leg right there. And you can see we came real close to that before prices reversed. But I showed you the bigger picture measured leg, and it was to the tick almost. Now here you get a reversal pattern. Notice you move up and you get a first entry, you get your second leg up, and then it turns down and it bounces right off that EMA and gives you that bullish bar. You could have actually gone long one tick above that bar, but I'd wait on this to close. I don't like those engulfing bars on a reversal too much. Just go long there. And that turns out to be the low of the day. We still chop sideways up here, but that takes you into 230. I wouldn't take anything after that. And that's the way I saw it. Again, you can see it's a big down day, but really that last, from maybe 9:30 on, we're really in a range with a failed breakout both sides. But you couldn't argue this wasn't the dominant pattern, this blue one, because I believe it is, because you get the break and two perfect measured legs down, and then we reverse out of there. It looks like we're working on a measured leg up now. So anyway, this is getting a little long. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you had a good trading day. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next